Hello everyone! It has been a while since I have busted out a clan generator challenge. Firstly, a little refresher about the clan lore, especially since it's been quite some time. My four main clans, FledgeClan, RippleClan, FledgeClan, and ValleyClan, previously lived in a valley between two mountains. ValleyClan was the founding clan of the bunch and held many wise elders for several generations. The land was split into two by a river that provided plenty of prey year-round. One rainy season, a disastrous flood struck the once peaceful lands and wiped out most of their territory, dwindling the clan's numbers greatly. This disaster was later dubbed as the Great Flood. Those who survived sought out new land to live on, which is where they currently reside. For moons, they've been struggling to rekindle their relationship with StarClan and go back to the way life was before. It took a few generations, but eventually everyone settled. Onto the lore for this specific clan. FledgeClan itself, prior to the flood, lived much higher up in the mountain than their neighboring clans. For decades, birds were seen as a symbol of respect and bravery. However, within sort of recent times, their previous leader received an omen with birds. Several had dropped dead on the ground of the basin of the valley right after a gathering. Their bodies were healthy, but their wings were gummed up with wet, muddy gunk. Upon hearing word of this, the elders took it as a sign of potential doom and began conspiring. For a while, this divided the clan and caused inner conflict. It was later revealed to be a warning regarding the flood, but even with the numerous signs and warnings given to the medicine cat, the leader brushed this off, stating that their altitude would prevent them from being affected by any disaster. The damage had already been done. When the Great Flood hit, FledgeClan took the least damage out of the rest due to their position on the mountain. Days went by and pride and arrogance sat heavy, seeing as the other clans now relied on their help. Their leader had been partially correct. They were safe up higher. But what they didn't anticipate was the landslides that followed. The days of safety were over and many cats had been wiped out, sucked into an endless torrent of dirt and water. Burdened by their loss, the survivors traveled outwards to seek new lands. Two groups of cats formed, one who went north and the ones who went southwest. The group who traveled downwards ended up making the new FledgeClan and stuck to their old ways of taking the higher ground. Their camp is placed on a high-walled cliff. At the base there is a mock camp, which is where cats can hang out. Upon first glance, it almost seemed like that was their camp. But inside woven tunnels much higher up was the cats' individual dens. FledgeClan also helped the most in reuniting the clans with their ancestors, being the first to discover a new access point called the Moon Flame, which is a waterfall discovered in the back of a cave that harbors a flame behind it. That is the brief rundown of the clan lore, so now on to the cats. Some of these backstories will be rather lengthy, so bear with me, but it's okay, more lore. First up is the leader, Fernstar. Fernstar, previously called Fern Hollow, is a short-haired, black-spotted tabby cat with yellow eyes. They wear their name with pride by adorning their tail and wounds with fern leaves. Despite being incredibly young, they were originally chosen as deputy for expertise in wise thinking and commendable bravery by the clan's previous leader, Fernstar. When the flood first took place, he was one of the cats that never turned up, but Fernstar had been more than prepared to take over. They often helped plan patrols and aided Cranestar to fulfill his duties more often than not. The two of them had a relationship dynamic that was close to parent and child, and it was crushing for them that he was never found after the tragedy. Fernstar now wears a large wound across their face where they were caught in the landslide, being a reminder of the lives that were managed to be saved. Their right leg had also been damaged beyond repair, which initially made their clanmates hesitant of their capability to lead the clan. Due to the injuries, FledgeClan took the longest to migrate to the new area, some even thinking that they weren't going to make it. Through all of this, their newly appointed leader held high hopes and a very bright, lively spirit. However, Fernstar carried the fear of storms long after the event, seeing each rumble of thunder as a threat to the clan. Due to this fear, they decided to make camp in the intricate cave systems. Jumping back to before the flood, leading up to present time. Fernstar has always had trust issues when it comes to relationships. They are very easy to trust, allowing other cats to get close to them easily and getting into rocky situations fast. Before the flood, Fernstar had an interesting relationship with another clan cat named TundraLeap, a RippleClan warrior. This was Fernstar's first love, who won them over during a gathering, being one of the most exciting and exhilarating things to have ever happened to them. Seeing a future together, Fernstar, who at the time was just a warrior, promised to give up everything for TundraLeap. Not more than a few moons after, Fernstar was promoted to deputy. TundraLeap seemed to show up less to their secret meetings and over time seemed to lose interest. Fernstar was completely oblivious to this change, absolutely head over heels for this Tom. One day, he just never showed back up. Fernstar waited patiently for the next gathering, assuming he would be there. There was incredibly exciting news to share with him, and they were certain that he was just busy with clan duties. After what seemed like forever, a crushing wave of realization hit her. He wasn't there that night. Roughly a moon had passed and Fernstar fell into a bout of depression. Anyone who offered them support or comfort was pushed away, especially Fernstar's sister, Riverlight, out of fear of disappointing her. During this time period, the two siblings drifted pretty far apart, leaving Fernstar to feel even more lonely than before. They needed to know the answer to it all and set off one night to head to RippleClan's camp with the aid of the medicine cat, using an herb trade as a cover-up. Once there, the truth was discovered that Thunderleap had set his sights on another member of his own clan. This was also the night of the start of the month-long rains, and they had to return back to FledgeClan's camp soon as possible. The tragic events of the flood kept their mind occupied, nearly forgetting about Thunderleap in the process. Fernstar never let anyone know about their relationship or the fact that they were carrying kids, even throughout the stress and horrors of the flooding. When they were through with the long journey and finally settled, the stress of everything caught up with Fernstar and they grew violently ill. A fever raged through their system, leaving them on nest rest for nearly a moon. Still unwilling to admit what was happening, the medicine cat was left in shambles, assuming that the clan would lose another great member to the tragedy. He assumed it was due to the rough leg injury, treating it as such. Despite nothing working, Fernstar held on strong, relying on the newly appointed deputy to handle a lot of the things. During this time, Fernstar grew very close with two of their clan members, Finch and Poppystream. These were cats that they already knew well anyway, and was friends with throughout their apprenticeships. The two of them took turns keeping Fernstar company, bringing them fresh bedding and laying with them for warmth during the night. For the first time in a long time, Fernstar truly bonded with another cat and felt like they could open up and share what was going on. The two of them proposed Fernstar be made a proper leader just in case that their life was going to be taken by the illness, but since their reconnection to StarClan was gone, that plan fell through. By the end of the second moon, which was the first moon after the flood, Fernstar was ready to pop. Finch and Poppystream had offered to take on the kits as theirs and raise the litter to the best of their ability, but with the clan camp being only half established at this point and many of the warriors injured, they unanimously agreed that the best thing to do would be to give the kids over to RippleClan. Fernstar themselves was not in any shape to take care of them while recovering, nonetheless have the energy to explain to anyone else. The kits were taken in by Thunderleap and his new mate, and never spoken of again. For the next several moons, while FledgeClan was being built up again and the wounds of the past slowly mending, Fernstar made a full recovery and took over leading once again, with things looking up for the clan as a whole. Next up is the clan's deputy, Driftwood. Driftwood is a short-haired, brown-ticked tabby she-cat with copper eyes. Driftwood was not originally brought up in the clans, being born as Mallow to a rogue family that lived in an abandoned sawmill. She was one of the two kits in her mother's litter, her sibling being another she-cat named Hibiscus. Her life growing up was not the best, as these were a ruthless group of cats who would engage in many diplomatic battles. Cats would challenge the hierarchy all the time, resulting in bloody spats. Their group was on edge more often than not, which taught Driftwood to be ready to fight at all points in time. Between territory spats, challenges to lead, quarrels amongst equally dividing prey, this group quickly became cutthroat and was not a great place for a young kid to live. Their family didn't stay at this place too long, soon uprooting and leaving despite all the vile comments thrown towards her and her family for leaving. Not too soon after that, Driftwood's mother was found and guilted into returning, leaving the option up to her children to run away and pursue their own lives. Both Driftwood and her sibling chose to leave their old life behind, but after less than a day, Hibiscus decided that she couldn't take being away from her mother anymore and took off in the middle of the night to return home and find her. Driftwood took this very personal and set off on her own to figure out where she belonged in life. She wandered for what seemed like moons, her coat becoming dull and her fur matting into scraps. Nearly a year passed during this time, but it all felt like a big blur. Life on her own was difficult despite her large size and strength. She wasn't taught how to hunt or groom or anything. During one rainstorm, she was caught in a rush of mud and water, becoming trapped between a large rock and a branch in the middle of the stream. Her weakened state didn't allow her to fight back, and she passed out. Not long after, a Fledge Clan patrol found her trapped underneath the sticks. She came to, ready to fight without hesitation, her mane spiked and her hackles raised, even though her blurry vision was still swirling with exhaustion. Instead of being immediately attacked like anticipated, a sympathetic, concerned gaze met hers, and Driftwood started sobbing. She didn't know what was happening. The head of the patrol, a sleek black she-cat named Riverlight, sent the other two to fetch the medicine cat. She slowly nestled herself down next to the large, disheveled cat, observing her breaths go from rapid and erratic to shaky, but slower. Driftwood never expected this cat to even want to look at her. She had to seem like a monster to outsiders. By the time her senses came back, the other two had returned with the medicine cat and he treated her wounds and escorted her back to camp. She was continually treated and healed, even being jokingly dubbed Driftwood because they found her the way that they did in the stream. Eager to push her past away, she accepted this as her new name. After taking a week to recover, Driftwood thanked the clan for their kindness and set off again, unwilling to settle into another place where tension could rise like in her old life. That and the clan was not too fond of strangers, causing uneasiness towards the whole situation. She was sad to go, but she felt like she belonged on her own. For the first time, she'd felt cared for, and the thought of that kept burning its way into her subconscious, feeling she needed to repay a debt to the clan. The kind gaze of the black she-cat lingered in her head, her heart aching. Unable to shake the feeling, she was dead set on protecting this clan from a distance. For a few moons she took residence nearby, but one fateful night she set out for a general hunt when she heard screams of despair coming from FledgeClan's camp. It was almost like her paws were controlling themselves as she ran as quickly as she could to see what was wrong. The disastrous flood had struck, and she helped as many cats as she could, using her strength to her benefit and rescuing many. After this, she was asked to help the clan on their journey downwards. She traveled with them, settling down finally and helping them rebuild their lives. It was cathartic for Driftwood because she felt like she was helping them as well as build a new life for herself. She settled in, growing closer to the cat who has always been beside her since the rescue. Moons and moons down the road, Driftwood became restless thinking about her old family. Against better judgment, she set out on her own again to find her long-lost family. This left Riverlight heartbroken, but she felt it was necessary to do. It was a difficult, several-day-long journey, but she had made it. The cats at the sawmill were just as vile and unaccepting as she remembered, and this brought her hackles to a raise. However, she didn't recognize anyone there, and most importantly, she didn't spot her family. This is when she discovered that her sister had had a litter of 2 kits but was nowhere to be found. Feeling extremely sympathetic to the young cats, Driftwood nestled down with them and promised them sanctuary, consoling the shaking kits. From then on, she resented the idea of her family, and she took the kits with her. She returned back to the clans with these kits, who were later named Frogpaw and Tanglepaw. Over time, Riverlight would aid in changing her negative opinion about family life, opening her heart up to new possibilities. Moving on, we have the clan's medicine cat, Quail Tuft! Quail Tuft is a short-haired gray tom with green eyes. He is another cat who was not originally born in Fledge Clan. He was found as a younger tom, shy as could be and in need of help. When he was originally found, no one knew his origins, not even himself. He was nestled into some rocks with no one around to be found. He sort of made a chirping sound when happy and was dubbed the prefix Quail for his soft downy fur and cooing like squeaks. Throughout his younger days, he would constantly fall ill to any small inconvenience, be it the changing of the seasons to the stress of training. Each time this would happen, the young tom would have to take anywhere between a few days to upwards of weeks to rest and recover. He grew frustrated with himself, wanting to keep up with the others, but his body just couldn't match their level of energy. But as a plus side, whenever one of the warriors or apprentices were hurt, they would have one of the kindest den mates ever. Even though his energy levels were low, he would take great joy in helping those around the medicine den. He soon learned to love the art of healing and comfort. This really inspired Quail Tuft to take an interest in apprenticing under the previous medicine cat, seeing as how she was so kind to him and he felt he could understand and truly feel any ailment that another cat came to him with. Plus, Quail Tuft never felt the need to take on a mate or even so much as bother with the relationships. From kidhood, he felt the same kind of bond with every cat he met. When he took on the role of a true medicine cat, he was still young and new to everything. While he did carry a lot of knowledge, the flood ended up taking his mentor's life, and since moving to the new territory, he had to learn to be independent in his studies. He worked with the other clan's medicine cats here and there, collaborating to expand his knowledge and make sure he can truthfully support his clan. The medicine cat he relates to the most is Gorestone, since his mentor had also gone missing since the flood, and they are both sympathetic to the harsh feelings of grief. His on and off illnesses have become less frequent, but there are times he still has to rely on his apprentice to handle the heavy work. Exhausted and defeated, there have been several times he's considered resigning his position and handing it over to another well-trained cat, feeling inadequate and unhelpful. But his clanmates always encouraged and supported him, and he was able to push through. One day, he caught wind of what is essentially a rumor of cats who have an advanced grasp of medicine, and he wishes he had the energy to find them. No one really knows the truth behind this, so it's left as nothing more than a mere kit's tale. He spends a lot of time in the cave systems deciphering messages left in the paw prints of ancient cats that seem to have lived in this area before them. Many nights his dreams are full of darker scenes and confusing visuals, with each one being hazy and like static. He always brushed these off as dreams being brought on by fevers or his illnesses, and did his best to reassure himself that they were nothing serious. However, once moving, these dreams became more intense and panic-inducing. He felt like he was cursed. They were slowly causing less and less sleep throughout the nights. He was falling behind in his duties and struggling even more to see himself fit as a medicine cat, now periodically having intense headaches on top of other ailments. One night, his dreams were chock full of sounds of voices he didn't recognize. A silver tabby stood in front of him with dull hazel eyes and a gaunt face. His eyes were sunken and his pelt was a mess. He relayed a daunting prophecy about cats who have passed being trapped in a realm between the territories and StarClan, and since then, the voices in his dreams have become more clear. He strives to get to the bottom of it all and reunite the clans with their ancestors. Moving on to the clan's warriors. First up is Cypress Whisker. Cypress Whisker is a long-haired white and brown spotted tabby tom with amber eyes. From a young age onwards, Cypress Whisker had always strived to be the strongest. He grew up with 2 siblings, Onyx Heart and Talanclaw. The 3 of them would always get into trouble, mostly egged on by him. He had endless amounts of energy, and nothing seemed to get in his way. He was more than eager to finish his apprenticeship as quickly as possible, striving to be leader one day. There was a lot of potential inside of this cat, and he needed to make sure everyone was aware of it. His dire need to impress didn't stop at just his friends or clanmates either. His hot-headedness often got him in trouble at gatherings more often than not, fearlessly picking fights with warriors and other clans twice his size. He also kept on top of the current topics and kept himself neat and groomed. Eventually, his overbearing personality and snarky words pushed a few of his clanmates away, but rather than tone things back, he would now start to pick fights among the apprentices and took on a bully position in their ranks. He figured that if he was too much for them anyway, he'd actually give them a reason to be annoyed at him. This started off small and went unnoticed, and the other apprentices and his siblings usually didn't react to his unkind words. But things started to get more heated when he picked on Hawkbriar during that time period. The 2 of them had always been rivals from the start, and would often go head-to-head, arguing over who would become the better warrior. Hawkbriar was also the feistiest apprentice out of the bunch, and was the only one to stand up to him, shooting his ego down and challenging his attitude. And Cypress Whisker was the exact same way, ready to fight at any given moment. This went on for moons, and the whole clan was amused by their banter and bickering. Even though outwardly it seemed like they hated each other, they were somehow the best of friends outside of it all. Since they were so young, some even found their fighting spirit to be endearing. However, one day closer to the end of their apprenticeships, a mock battle went too far and he lost his temper. The others, being annoyed for moons at his wildness, cheered Hawkbriar on in this fight. He ended up biting her by the scruff and slamming her to the ground, eager to prove that he was the best. He wasn't aware of his own strength, and in the process, he'd torn her ear open and thrown her shoulder out of place, leaving her lying limp on the ground. Blood dripping down the side of her face, she teared up and started limping away, expressing that she hated him. Everyone jumped onto Cypress Whisker, and for the first time in a long time, he felt shame and deep regret. He sobbed, following her to the medicine den, apologizing relentlessly. He never intended to actually harm someone he cared about so deeply, and realized that the whole clan was looking at him like he was a horrible cat. From then on, he did his very best to make it up to everyone. He slowly mended his friendships with the other apprentices. It stung, but Hawkbriar avoided him since that day, unwilling to remend their friendship. Even as a warrior, Cypress Whisker retained his spicy attitude and snappy comebacks, but now he had something better to fight for. He came to regret his crappy attitude and wanted to help build camaraderie within his clan, turning into a very social and respectable cat. When the flood happened, he ended up losing his 2 siblings in the whole ordeal, and after witnessing the horrors of it all, dedicated his life to defending Hawkbriar with all he could give. He nearly died pulling her out of collapsed rocks, willing to sacrifice everything to make it back up to her. In the middle of the storm, with her lying on the ground half-conscious, he sobbed into her shoulder, begging her to stay alive. She watched as more rocks came crumbling down and he stood over her body, refusing to let anything hurt her. She admitted then that she never actually hated him. She was just too stubborn to admit it. She deeply cared for him the whole time, and by being his rival, she was pushing him to be the best that he could be. With shallow breaths, she called him a mouse brain and passed out. Both of them survived, but Hawkbriar was badly injured, and later on the 2 of them became inseparable. Second on the list is Riverlight. Riverlight is a black spotted tabby she-cat with short fur and gold eyes. She's the littermate of Fernstar, but has unfortunately always followed in their shadows, slipping under the radar. Riverlight is a very caring she-cat, but is not great at outwardly showing her emotions. She wanted to be the supportive one in the dynamic, but often found herself seeking comfort from her sibling instead. Their parents often focused on Fernstar's successes and overlooked hers, always hinting at a sense of favoritism in their actions. When they were apprentices, Fernstar would always take the lead on everything, advancing their skills much faster and learning new methods was a breeze. Riverlight was average in her training, and was still doing great, but all of the praise unfortunately landed on her sibling instead. Rather than focusing on pleasing her parents, she became a show-off know-it-all to all of her fellow apprentice friends, which in turn made them more wary of being around her. She didn't know what she was doing so terribly wrong. This often led her to being viewed as a troublemaker, leading other apprentices astray and challenging to play dangerous games. Eventually, she mellowed out closer to becoming a warrior, learning to live in the shadow of others and just hold her tongue. By nature, she just cared too much, jealousy pushing out the rational thoughts and turning them into spitefulness. While Fernstar was having a problem, Riverlight was right by her side the whole time, supporting her until the very end. But as soon as she had a problem, Fernstar was suddenly too busy with patrols or somehow not able to spend any time with her. She felt defeated and that all of her sacrifices have gone unseen. This was an unfortunate loop that she'd been caught in for years. She wants to be as supportive as possible, but since her trust had been violated so many times and her kindness overlooked, she stuck to the shadows, thinking it would be better just to be a strong face for her clan and not worry too much about social interactions. Because of this, she was deemed as cold and uncaring by a lot, but underneath she just wants to give. She resents her sibling slightly for being the better of the two, but in all actuality, Fernstar cares for her more than anyone else in the clan. They both just haven't realized that in recent times. This mindset kept Riverlight from ever pursuing a mate, never having an interest in anyone she's ever met. She's bonded with several cats in and outside of the clans, but has denied a handful of possibilities. One day she finally came across a cat who supported her just as much as she supports them. As much as she hates the rain, she decided to go along with 2 other clanmates and patrol the area. Initially she was going to say no, but there was some mysterious push to go out that day. It was like being pulled towards a certain part of the territory. And then she discovered Driftwood on her last leg. She never felt so sure about helping another cat before. She didn't even care about the repercussions. Afterwards, she was truly unsure of her own emotions, initially denying wanting to befriend and get close to this new cat. After all, she knew nothing about her or her life before the injury, yet she kept visiting her during recovery and bringing her supplies. She went through every emotion imaginable during this time. Guilt for being drawn to an outsider, anger for her getting more attention and not even being a part of the clan, sadness that this was likely a fleeting moment, excitement of new possibilities, and so many more. She'd never felt such a rush, and she needed to clear her head. By the time Driftwood had recovered, she made it clear that clan life wasn't suited for her and that she would leave again. Riverlight was unbearably upset over this, not even saying anything before she left. She spent moons pondering in jealousy and anger over a cat that she hardly knew. But after the flood, Driftwood staying with them allowed her to think through her roller coaster of emotions much better. With the focus being on helping the clan, they worked side by side to build a stronger clan. After nearly a year, when things settled, Riverlight sheepishly confessed, terrified of rejection. Driftwood initially stepped back, terrified of the idea of possibly hurting again. She said that she didn't think she could answer until she got closure from the whereabouts of her family, but reassured Riverlight that she'd never felt so loved by another cat before. Riverlight then aided her on her journey to find her family against Driftwood's better judgment. She was forced to stay behind, but this didn't last long. Her anxiety had gotten the better of her. She gathered a bundle of traveling herbs from Quail Tuft and set off to find her. They both found the 2 kits and brought them back to camp, and they raised them. Third up, and the last one for this video, is Finch Willow. Finch Willow was a long-haired, cream-ticked tabby tom with amber eyes. Growing up, he was an incredibly shy and timid apprentice with a calm personality. He hardly spoke, doing his assigned tasks without any questions. Being a stickler for the rules, he would often stay out of trouble as well as keep others from making poor mistakes. He took an interest in every aspect of clan life, including taking care of the elders, helping the queens out with watching their kids, helping the medicine cat organize herbs, and keeping the camp clean and orderly. This didn't mean he despised hunting or patrolling. He actually really loved doing those as well. He wanted to provide for his clan. He was careful not to make any mistakes or step on any toes, going about his days absorbing as much information as possible. During this time, he also focused on strengthening his bonds with his fellow apprentice friends, becoming close with Poppy Stream and Fern Hollow. As he got older, there was pressure from his older clanmates to pick an interest and stick with it rather than floating around and carrying the weight of all of the duties at once. He couldn't have an interest in both herbs and patrolling, or taking care of the elders as well as hunting. He was told that toms usually don't take care of kits, they fight to protect the clan. But he already does that too. Why would he need to sacrifice something he enjoys doing? When his first leaf bear fell, the temperatures plummeted relatively fast and many of the Fledge Clan cats developed respiratory illnesses, and without the medicine cat at the time having an apprentice, Finch took on this role without hesitation to help the clan out in their time of need. With his help, they were able to pull through one of the roughest winters the valley had ever seen. He was gracefully accepted as a warrior not even a moon after, gaining the name Finch Willow for his gentle, kind, and caring nature. From then on, he didn't exactly care about the standard roles, choosing to align with any vision another cat had of him. Once discovering that he didn't have to squeeze himself into a tiny little box, his personality bloomed and confidence flooded in, becoming the social butterfly of the camp. Long down the road, when new roles were introduced to the clans, he took on the role of lore keeper, where he could peacefully take care of the clan and everything about it. Alright, that's all of them. I know I usually get through a lot more cats than this, but since their backstories are so long and thought out, it took up more time than intended. Thank you guys for sticking with me through all of that, and I really hope you enjoy learning the lore of FledgeClan. Part 2 will be out soon after this.